Well, salutations, kindred spirits. Greetings to all the friends, and I hope maybe friends and family of Jon Racherbaumer, the mentor, the scholar, the father, the author, the philosopher. We're remembering Jon today. Got a few of his books on the shelf. Some of you might not even know who Jon Racherbaumer is. He was a fringe spirit, and if you do card tricks, you probably know. If you read magic books, you probably know. And if you don't know, I'm going to enlighten you a little bit more today as we remember this giant. This man was important in my life. We go all the way back to at least 1990. That's when he signed Cardfixes. I got some weird things on the table today. This, the most arcane of all knowledge, Jon's manuscript on the 21 card trick. Because Jon cared enough about the art to write a manuscript on the 21 card trick. He was a sick man. From that to the mainstream endeavors, and look at this fine book, The Amazing Cigar. This was Jon's... you could get this in the bookstore, where they call it mainstream. This was a publication he did with Giovanni Lavira. Both of those men are here, and there's Racherbaumer back in the day. There's Gio. He's still around in Orlando. And I took the time today to reacquaint myself with this book. I got the book when it came out, and then I actually gifted my copy to a cigar aficionado back in the day. So I had to reread it to remember what was in here, and wow. What an amazing book this is. And it's called The Amazing Cigar, but what this book is full of is amazing tricks with matches. I'm going to show you something with matches in just a minute. I'm going to do a few tricks today of Jon's. In fact, we're going to revisit a couple of card tricks. I'm going to teach you a card trick that Jon and I collaborated on all the way back in 1995. The clean sweep the clean sweep penetration. I'm going to teach you how to do this thing. We'll do a couple other card tricks. I got a thing from Cardfixes and an Ed McGowan piece. And then in addition to giving away this book to one lucky viewer, I got an extra copy of this as I'm going to try not to cry today. I've cried so much over Racherbaumer. I'm going to try not to do this. But last Sunday, I gathered with local magicians and out-of-town magicians and just some of the closer spirits to Jon. And we did a broken wand ceremony, which is what magi do when important magi pass away. They get together and break a wand. And I have some pictures from that event. I'm going to share those today via Facebook for those of you who weren't able to be there and or who would just like to get a sense of what the moment was like to remember Jon Racherbaumer. Let me say hi to some people. I didn't really take any time to say hello to all the wonderful people. For those who celebrate, yes, it's holiday time. What's up, Eddie? And happy Thanksgiving to you. Hello, Dr. Bob, and welcome back. Tim Askin, always good to see you, my friend. Ron's in the house. Howdy. These glasses are my readers. These are serviceable, but thanks. We're representing the playing cards, Randall. Ed McGowan. Ed, I'm going to do one of your tricks today. I hope I don't screw it up. It's not in my repertoire. What's up, Jonathan? Good to see you. Ronnie. Hello. Hey, let's get started. I'll teach you something from the Amazing Cigar book. You think you know a thing or two. You go around the world a couple of 50 years and you think you learn like all the bar bets. I used to manage a bar in Algiers Point where Jon Racherbaumer lived. I managed this bar. Like, you could count these if you want to do that. Maybe later on, someone watching the video will wish they'd counted the matches later. I don't know. You do you. Here's the bar bet. You go to the bar, your drinking buddy, and you say, I'm going to drop this match, and it's going to land on its edge. not flat, like that's flat. It's going to land on its edge. And then, you know, whatever you think you can swindle your friend for. You let them try it. You say, here, I'll give you a couple of 100 tries. And you watch them drop this match, trying to drop it on their edge. No dice. When you're ready to win the bet, do this. Secretly crimp the match. So put a little bend in it, or put a big bend in it if you want to, you know, be a jerk about it. And then when you drop it, it'll land on its edge. How about that? I think I unsettled it. Here, let me do it again. It will land on its edge every time, except for when you're live on the internet. Just like that. That's the match bar betcha with all of 3 minutes rehearsal time. This is not like it's in my repertoire. I did take the time, though, to set up a little routine. You know, after you do the bar betcha, maybe you do this. Maybe you say, watch. That's what John would have said. Actually, I'll tell you this about Racherbaumer. He was an amazing intimate performer. And if you were lucky enough to spend a couple of minutes in his presence, that's how you make a match burn twice. If you were lucky enough to see some magic in John's presence, I guarantee you it'd be an experience you remembered for the rest of your life. I don't think performing was his favorite thing, but when he did perform, it was magic. There's one burnt match inside this pack of matches, welded back to its original starting place. And if you counted them when we began, now's your time to count them again. And that's another example of the wonderful magic that you can learn in the amazing cigar. So here's one you can't learn. This is a foreshadowing moment in some ways. So we saw how to make a match burn once. We saw how to make a match burn twice. Here is how you make a match burn 3 times. And that is not in the amazing cigar. But it's a pretty good finish to that little match sequence. So while we're going to see a lot of card tricks today, it doesn't always have to be that. And let me go back just a little bit to when I first heard of the name Jon Racherbaumer. I'm going to travel over here. I've shown you guys this before. If you've been on my channel, the library.com site is a great place to catch up with all things Racherbaumer. And there's a wonderful biography of the man there on the page. There's a large collection of his books here. And Nick wants to know where you get the matches. Oddly enough, I bought those from Murphy's Magic. I had to order white matchbooks, but go to the bar, go have a social life and get a drink and get one there. Here we are at the library.com. You're going to spell that with a L-Y, Brary. And this is the book that I first learned of Jon Racherbaumer. As I mentioned this book, I'm going to mention a few things in here, like I learned of the muscle pass. There's a Cornelius thing, coins through the table. This squeeze plays good too. It's a Roger Klaus item. I clearly recall John doing the piff, paff, poof routine with the linking pins. And what's on the mental magic, I'd recommend Correct Change. This is the version of the Einstein prediction trick. You'll have to go look that up. The card magic, this is an easy recommendation. There's 2 good ones here next to each other. Marlowe's color changing deck and the impact routine with the envelopes. Oh, yum, yum. And then if you want a diversion, go look at Marlowe's complete color vision routine. This is at the table. I borrowed this routine from a magic shop I worked at when I was 18. This guy would let me take the books home and read them and bring them back. Larry Rockman at LaRock's Magic in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I read this book. The name Racherbaumer stuck with me. I wouldn't hear it again until I was sessioning with Ed Marlowe. This would be about 6 months later, 7 months later, I'd packed my bags from Charlotte. I'd traveled from the life of an amusement park performer and hit the road as a busker. And I was in Chicago, got the chance to session with Ed Marlowe, and I told him I was headed to New Orleans. And when I told Marlowe that, he goes, "Oh, well, you're going to go see Racherbaumer then." And then the name came back to me, Racherbaumer. Oh, and I was like, "Oh, is he there?" And oh yeah, like Ed suggested, I should have known that. If you were an accomplished cardman in the 80s, you knew who Racherbaumer was. I was a kid. I was 18, so I didn't really know this man and his output, which was quite prolific at that point. By the time I was 18, Jon was already writing magic magazines. Maybe we can go back over here to library.com and just take a look at a couple more books besides At the Table. Here's a classic, Marlowe Without Tears. If you want some classic Racherbaumer, that's certainly worth your attention. Card Finesse is highly recommended. I think they just republished the book on this site, if I'm not mistaken. As I was going through Jon's title, there's Card Finesse here. This is probably his best volume. There's so many good things you'll learn here from Jon's Card Finesse. The follow-up's good too. The trick I'm going to teach today was actually launched from this manuscript, Ed Marlowe's Think Ace. And this is a compilation, and this is something Jon would return to. In fact, there's over 100 manuscripts along these lines. And the trick that you're going to see today, that we're going to learn, the clean sweep penetration of thought, was evolved from this. And also, we got to mention Di Vernon's penetration of thought. Without that, it wouldn't exist at all. I'll look at one more title, and then we'll do a little bit of magic here. This is an example of how deep Jon could get. Look at this, the Count Thesaurus. 70 false counts and displays. Yikes. And not too far from that, the 777 manuscript, where Jon has all of the methods for the 21 card trick, which everybody knows is my favorite card trick. And if aliens ever come to the planet Earth, these are the methods we'll use to stymie their intellect. So technically, Racherbaumer has saved the world. Thank you, Jon. All right, going back to like when I first met Racherbaumer, I was wondering, like, it must have been, was it Applebee's? We were meeting in Metairie at the time. And at the time, there would have been Tom Ladshaw, Lee Freed, Greg Gibson. Pardon me if I'm missing the early fellas. Ed McGowan. Ed was there. The boys of Bennigan's. We'd evolved to be the boys of Bennigan's, actually. And I'm sure it was there that I saw Jon perform this trick. This was one of his favorite triumphs. And in his first set of lecture notes, I don't know the name of the notes. Jon's first set of lecture notes, this routine is in there. It's also a good way to find high cards. So this is good knowledge in general. Like if you ever need the high cards from a deck of cards, you do this. It's almost mathematical. You take half of the deck and you turn it face up. And then what you want to do here is look for the high cards as you shuffle the face up cards into the face down cards. So you're looking for the high cards in the deck. Now, as you do a few cuts, you keep looking. You're going to look at the face up ones. I think I did it wrong. I was saying too many words and I did this incorrectly. That's going to be so sad. If you don't see any of the, I think I just fixed it. If you don't see any of the high cards in the shuffle, it's indicating that they're probably in the face down pile. Now I'm second guessing myself. Man, I have the hardest time with the easiest tricks. Let's start this over. Oh man. Classic con. This is a self-working triumph. Now I'm going to do some really hard magic in just a minute. It's going to work flawlessly, but you give me a trick that works itself and I'm going to goof it up every time. I made one cut in the wrong direction. You'll have to pardon me for having 300 card tricks in my brain, and one I don't do that much goofs up. Here we are doing it again. This is the advice. Don't do what I just did. Do this instead. Shuffle the face-up cards into the face-down cards. And then, as you give it this, you don't flip them, Con. That's why, as you give it this cut, you look for the high cards. And if you don't see any of the high cards in the deck, this is going to indicate that there are some of the face-down cards in the pack. And this is going to narrow it down considerably. You just look for the face-down cards, and then you can find the high cards that you need. And this is how that's supposed to look. Oh, I missed 4 of them, but I happen to have been looking for 4 high cards. And here they are for your entertainment pleasure. The 1, 2, 3, 4 aces. The Topsy Turvy Aces. Hey, we got there. It could have took 3 tries. Only 2. And again, self-working. I've actually done a lesson on this trick. It's not like it's rocket science. I did a lesson on the Tenkai optical revolve. Thank you for that applause. You're too kind. It's a pretty good one, right? It's a good cut display, and also that's motivated in that presentation. I actually need 2 sets of aces. This is the first one from the red deck. For the second version, for the second aces, I'm going to dig into this book. Now, this is signed for Doug Kahn with best wishes, and I hope you find something you like. Sincerely, Jon Racherbaumer, April 1990. But guess what, John? I found something I liked. I took a minute to go to the Conjuring archive today and make a note of what I like from this book, and maybe this will inspire some kindred spirits to crack open their copy of Cardfixes and plug through the table of contents and maybe dig into one of the tricks I highlighted here. I could have picked more. I tried to be a little picky. Eyes from the Gods, killer location. What's the point of this departure? Great version of Alex Elmsley's classic. Fixing the Vegas Split. I don't know why Ed McGowan's name's not here, but it's in the book. We're going to look at this in just a minute. Late Night Arising and or Sudden Sandwich. These are versions of Elmsley's late night location. I guarantee you watch either one of these in a late night session, your brain will melt. I saw Sudden Sandwich at about 3 in the morning, and I didn't sleep for a week after that. Homing Kings, great version of Williamson's 4 card tricks, using 4 focus cards, the Kings. Figures versus Prefiguration, Bidleen Brown in the round. Elmsley there is a great version of that. I did Surreal Monty in a magic competition. I lost, but that wasn't his fault. Here's some more. Into Shooter, Rising Robbers, Juice Work. John got in a little trouble when he published that. It's so good. Let's get down to the bottom. Topping Mental Topper. You want a mystery? Go learn that trick. Topping Mental Topper. As I say these words, I'm going to encourage viewers, kindred spirits, if you're watching this after the stream, if you have a favorite Racherbaumer routine, and it doesn't have to be from Cardfixes, it can be from any Racherbaumer book, drop a little comment in the description. Let other people know what's a good book. It could be this one. Maybe something from that. Or maybe something from the Hierophant magazine or Arcade Dreams. This is the Fixing the Vegas Split. You guys might not know Ed McGowan. Let me introduce you to him. He sent me a couple pictures last couple weeks ago. You know, everyone's been missing Racherbaumer. Ed sent me some pictures. He sent me this one. So this is Rock back in the day, and that's Ed in the background. There's a young magic superstar in the foreground there. I'm wondering if anyone can guess who that is before I do this next card trick. So, hey, Ed McGowan, thanks for sharing that picture. And I'm going to share some more We're going to look at some pictures from Jon's broken wand momentarily. And then I'm also going to give away this book. And lastly, we're going to learn a card trick. Ronnie knows right away. He knows. It's Jay Sankey. Ed knows too, duh. I didn't know that anyone would get it, but I'm not surprised that Ronnie pegged it. He might have been there for that session. Yeah, and oddly enough, Jon wrote a book of Jay Sankey's, Sankey Unleashed. This was an unlikely pairing, but one of the many hardcover books that Jon Racherbaumer published was of this magical genius Jay Sankey, Sankey Unleashed. So many books I could recommend of Jon's. It's like the Don Allen book. How about the Don Allen book? Wrong camera. But we paid for this camera. Let's use it for just a moment. Okay, that's long enough. All right, back to the topic of high cards. The trick I'm going to demonstrate uses two sets of high cards, one from a red back deck and one from a blue back deck. So we need some high cards from this blue back deck. I'm going to try and cut the high cards. We'll see if this goes as well as the first trick did. Did I mention that was, yeah, I mentioned it. All right, cutting the high cards. Feeling pretty good about that one. We'll give it the razzmatazz. I'll do it the hard way just because I can. If I do it the hard way, it'll probably work. That is not a good start. Not even close. But fortunately, if you know the things that Racherbaumer knows, and if you were around him in the early 90s, you know how to take a deuce and then split it. So you could take the two and split it into the two black aces. And you could take this red deuce and split it like this, and the two red aces. That's how you fix the Las Vegas split. And according to Racherbaumer, that was a late night fix from a session of the Knights of Sleights. And again, remembering Racherbaumer in the Knights of Sleights, this gathering that he had every week, started in Metairie at Applebee's, moved it to the West Bank to Bennigan's, back to Applebee's again. I had the honor of riding with Jon Racherbaumer to these meetings for the better part of 20 years of my life. Boy, you want to talk about an education? Spend an hour with this man, but here's what would happen. He'd pick me up about 6:30 or 7. We'd go to the restaurant and close it around midnight or 1. There would be 10 or 20 different magicians here. You know what I'm going to do is go over to Jon's. Let's go over to Jon's Facebook. Man, there's a lot here. This is the Jon of the day. Oh, there's so much here. I wanted to look back at like what you might see at a Bennigan's meeting. This is a good one right here. This is Bennigan's, and that is Mark Wilson. I remember the night that Mark was there. This is dated 2010. This picture is probably from like 1992. It's all family and card books. This picture, I'm going to go up here a little bit, caught my eye. And boy, let me tell you, if there's any hope of finding the manuscript that is spoken of, and y'all pardon me while I find the picture I was hoping to find. Oh, here's one. Jason Alford, he'll be mentioned in The Boys of Bennigan's. Steve Cohen, and there is David Blaine. He's about 20 years old there. I hope I can find this picture. Jon allures that he was writing a manuscript of all of the visitors to the Knights of Sleights gatherings. There were a lot over the course of 20 years. Here's the post, and there I am. Jon Racherbaumer. I'm putting together a collection of stories and photos from the New Orleans Knights of Sleights, inspired by the Chicago sodality. There's more than one Knights of Sleights. We were one of at least 2. which met at Bennigan's on the West Bank for 21 years. The attached picture shows Trini Montez, Doug Kahn. Hey, there's Eric Evans, legendary busker, Secret Art of War, of Magic, Secret Art of Magic, Earl Christenberry, and in the background, Stephen Miller. So boy, if that manuscript exists, I'd love to see that. Here's what it looked like in later years. We would have 10 or 20 magicians every Monday, but this is a common sight at the table. Here's Steve Reynolds, Augie Garfalo, Joe Doggo's down there, and Herb Lenny's at the table. And that's what it was like to be at a Knights of Sleights gathering. And boy, it was an experience. If you were new to the meeting, you always got the attention of Jon. And that was like one of the great things about Jon, is he knew who needed the lessons, and if you had limited time, he made sure that you got them. And he would spend 3 or 4 hours sometimes with a noob, doing the one-on-ones. We would wrap up these sessions doing late nights at Joe Harrison and Lisa's house, and maybe we'll go over there now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the broken wand ceremony, and then we'll get into this trick that I'm going to teach you. I also want to take a look at just a couple. I've got some videos I pulled from Jon's YouTube channel. We're going to look at like 2 things of Jon performing. It's interesting that he was putting short form video on YouTube like 5 years before short form video was a thing, but I digress. Let's go over here and check out the pics I grabbed from the soiree. And this would have been Sunday afternoon in Jon and Jessica's home. Let me say great thanks to Jessica for opening your house to the local magi. And with limited space, I'm sure there could have been 100 or maybe 1,000 magicians in there. This was a pretty intimate gathering. All right, so here we go. This is a picture off the wall. I grabbed this, and that's my mentor, my father figure, my magical father, Jon Racherbaumer, the man who knows everything. That's the broken one. All right, so here's the memories. When you came into the remembrance, Jessica had put together a nice board of pictures from Jon's appearances. There's pictures of him with Slidini and several with Harry. There he is with Joe and Chris Mitchell. Is that Mark Wilson down here? At Fechter's. I think I'm in this one, but so blurry it's small. Cover of Magic Magazine. Remembered on Genie with Marlowe. And all the local luminaries were there. Here we're going to see Gary Hughes. He was a past international president of the Society of American Magicians. His wife, Faye. Herb Miller's in the far seat. And in the foreground there is Mark Aspiazu. You know, Cardman Mark, and Hudson Brock in the back corner. We had some out-of-town guests here. Rolando Santos is in the house, in from Texas. He's talking to Steve, and Jon's wife, Jessica's there in the middle. Elizabeth Anderson was present and spoke at the ceremony. This is Harry Anderson's widow, and if Jon had a best friend later in life, it was Harry, I think. Jon and Harry were very close, and it's really nice to see Elizabeth there. And again, open thanks to Jessica for opening her doors. This is Lenny. There's Kevin Carney. And Joe Harrison in the background there. Here's the Carditions, and this is Steve Reynolds with myself. Great to see Jim Hussey as well. Jim spoke briefly, and he met Jon when he was 15. Believe it or not, Jim is 65. He's a role model for 65-year-olds, this guy. Yeah, I'm looking good. And Mark Aspiazzo again. A little bit sad. Mark didn't have a deck of cards in his pocket, but I'll forgive you for that. The kindest of all the kind people, Joe Harrison and Lisa. This is the father and daughter. They were a magic team for, 20 years, I guess, maybe longer. We should talk to the Harrisons one day and get their backstory. Joe presided over the broken wand ceremony. And I'm sure Lisa had her hands in. I know she made some of the yummy things I ate. And when we would go to John's house at 1 a.m. and drink coffee, she was the one bringing cookies and donuts to us as we sat around the VCR watching the latest magic video until our eyes bled. That's what we did on Mondays. It was an epic occurrence. Let's wrap this up and look at the ceremony itself. Oh, we got to look at the books. So many books. This is one of John's awards. He has several magic literary awards. That's the Milbourne Christopher Award. I counted. I did a brief math. I briefly mathed. It's about 1,000 magic books on these shelves. He pared down, and let's take just before we look at the rest of this. Actually, this is a good moment to take a break and take a look at John's library. Let's go over to his YouTube channel. If y'all want to remember Racherbaumer when we're done here, you can go look at Mr. John cards on YouTube. John was a YouTuber. This is a video of his library before it was pared down, and it's also a great chance to listen to Racherbaumer. So I'm going to shut up for a minute.
Oh, here's a quick tour of some of my books. My wife calls this euphemistically my crypt. This is where I work. Books are all pristinely arranged. That's some recent purchases there. These are all neatly stacked. More stacks. More shelves. More books. I'm actually surrounded. I am engulfed in books.
All right, so that video goes on for another minute, and yes, he was engulfed in books. I had the honor of visiting that room many times when I was a young man. I used to be the hand model when John would take pictures for Magic Magazine, and boy, it hurts me to even look at these pictures. This one ended up in my book. This is when I did cigarette magic, and these pictures were taken at John's house. I think this one was in his kitchen. And this would have been for what would appear in Magic Magazine. So I would go to John's house and he would take pictures to send in for illustrations as he wrote the articles. He wrote for so many magazines, it's unwieldy to even count them all. At the end of his life, he was most involved with Genie magazine and even had republished the item we'll be speaking of, the one I'm going to teach you. He retaught in 2023. There's a lot of magazines. Let me show you one that was the most important to me. I'm going to go back to John's Facebook. He's got a couple pictures of his magazines here. There's the Kabbalah. But this, modus operandi, you'll find chameleon sandwich with my name on it. This was the very first trick I'd ever had printed for the Magic Fraternity. This is available in a bound volume, the Modus Operandi. It's a compendium now. You can get it that way. But yeah, how inspiring was it for me to think that Jon Racherbaumer thought enough of my creative endeavors to publish them? And that certainly inspired me very much to the position where we're able to have a conversation today about Jon Racherbaumer. I'm quite certain that I would not be the magician I am with a head full of magic knowledge, ready to share it with kindred spirits without Jon Racherbaumer. And wow, just how blessed was I to have this man in my life. All right, got a little sidetracked. Let's get back to the ceremony, and we'll talk about what happened here. There was a nice program that each of the presenters read from, and Joe Harrison presided. As mentioned, it was a full house. Let's go to the next page. Maybe we could see a little bit of a better shot of some people here. Joe did a card trick with John's favorite card. I thought this was totally appropriate. And John's favorite card was the King of Hearts. I guess it was the Seven of Diamonds. I guessed influenced by that image I'd seen earlier, but nope, Seven of Hearts. There's John's lovely widow, Jessica Hack. Neil Baum in the background there. He's a local physician, knowing Neil for probably as long as knowing John. Y'all know Warpo. Warpo is in the house. Great to see him always. And there's Steve Reynolds. His inner monologue is, your Hindu force needs work. You can read it in his eyes. Before we broke the wand, everyone went around the table and spoke. Jon Racherbaumer, Gary Hughes said some words. Steve Reynolds, Kevin Carney, Elizabeth Anderson, and Joe Harrison would break the wand and send John onward. We took turns talking. I tried to say some words, and I ended up just crying like a baby for about 2 or 3 minutes. I don't know if the words I said were legible or not. This loss has hit hard for me over the last, it's maybe been a month now, and maybe after Sunday, I'm to the point where I don't cry anymore. Yeah, that's what it was like to be there to say goodbye to Jon Racherbaumer. I'm not done saying goodbye to him. In fact, I'm going to keep saying goodbye to John for a while. We're going to keep talking about him and show some of the lessons that I learned through the years, and we're going to reacquaint future audiences with Racherbaumer for quite a bit. I have 2 things I want to do before we wrap up, and one of them is give away a book. We'll watch a couple videos while we collect comments. Let's get collecting now, and if you're interested in having the amazing cigar and also the 777 manuscript, and some of you are going to be more interested in the 777 manuscript because you're sickos. The CD-ROM PDF version. Your text is ROCK, R-O-C-K. If you would like to win this book, please live in the North America, because if you don't, I'm going to ask you for shipping. Sending book probably cost me about $28 to send a book overseas. So if you live in North America and you would like to have the amazing cigar and the 777, and you know what else I'm going to put in here? I've got this envelope of special cards. We'll keep collecting comments. Let me show you what the special cards are for. One of John's favorite tricks, or one of my favorite tricks of John's. This is one of his creations. We're going to go back to his YouTube channel. Where is this thing? Here it is. Again, this is a short form vertical video published 9 years ago. It's a 1-minute magic short form vertical video 9 years ago. Way ahead of his time.
This is an oil and water routine that's 33 years old, buried in print. It uses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards. Red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black. They alternate. So it's red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black. If I put 2 of the black ones together and 2 of the red ones together, so they're somewhat separated, and I squeeze, these become all red. If I do this, the reds and the blacks disappear.
Let's go.
All the way around. Which is pretty strange. I'll have to think about that.
I agree. That's pretty strange. The Vanishing Oil and Water. Essentially an extended handling of oil and queens, which is a plot John would return to many times in his life. The necessary cards for this routine are in this packet. I'm going to do, I was trying to rework the handling for this. I think John had published it in a New York Magic Symposium. So it's oil and water and oil and water and oil and water, oil. I'm sorry, it's not that at all. It's oil and water and oil and water, and then oil and water, and then oil and water. That's what it is. it's probably too much to follow. So I'm going to put a few of the cards on the table, and we'll just keep your eyes on oil and water and oil and water. If I leave these above, because science, the elements will segregate, the oil separating from the water. I don't know if the oil rises or sinks, to be honest with you, but that's what just happened. If you allow this to wait just a little bit longer, it will not only separate, but it will start to evaporate. Gone, like a fading image, like the dinosaurs. I'm not going to go so dark here. Buck Bowen, forgive me. But this handling is going to be a clue for the student that gets these cards. You can rewatch the video and maybe have a clue as to how Jon Racherbaumer performed the Vanishing Oil and Water. This is the package that's going to go to a kindred spirit, and I'll continue to collect just a few more names as we get into our last moment here. I saw you earlier in the chat. I was looking for you Sunday, or when I was like, where's Erwin Roy's? And I saw that you were in North Carolina, and that's a thing. There's rumors of a reunion of the Knights of Slights mid-December. I'll document some of that if it happens. Erwin, maybe get out of the Knights of Slights reunion. For some reason, you're just joining us and don't know what's up. We're remembering Jon Racherbaumer, and I'm giving away a couple of his things. You're going to want to type in The Rock, just R-O-C-K, if you live in North America. And to wrap this up, before I give the books away, we're going to learn a card trick. It's really kind of a cool piece that I've reacquainted myself with over the last week. I put some thought into this trick, and this is a trick I put thought into in, it's probably 1994. And I brought this to the meeting, and as was pretty traditional for the Monday nights, I'd always try to bring something unique to the session to share with the fellas, a novel idea. And tonight I said, hey, what about repeating the penetration of thought? And as mentioned earlier, this would have been after I'd read the Think Ace manuscript. And I think in the Think Ace manuscript, either one of the aces was face up, or one of four was a different color. So we will use the different color backs, but I want to focus mainly on the faces to begin with. And ideally, you'd be here to just pick an ace. You could, here's how it starts. You say, pick a color. We can use red or black, and the color they choose is the color you use. And then you have them pick a card. And just for this demonstration, I'm going to pick the ace of spades. I think it'll be easy to follow, but remember, in real life, they get to pick the card they want. You might remember where it is. In this position, it's third from the top of the, in this case, face down packet. And then just for contrast, I'm going to use a card that you didn't pick, like the ace of clubs. So, and we'll leave it same position over here in the blue packet, third from the top, face down. I'm not sure the best presentation here. I think hand mucking is a good one. You talk about being able to cheat cards and secretly move them from place to place. Say, for example, if I wanted the card that you picked in my hand, then I might give you the card that I had and put it in your hand. So you would now have my ace of clubs, and I would have your ace of spades. This is the penetration of thought, where a chosen ace transposes from one place to another, and maybe you didn't know what was going to happen. You might not have been ready for that. So I'm going to repeat the illusion one more time for the slower students. And this time we'll do it just with 2 fingers. And that's what hand mucking looks like when you've done it for the better part of 30 years. And that's one blue card in the red side, one red card in the blue side. That's your ace of spades. That's my ace of clubs. And that is the clean sweep penetration of thought. Simple trick, lots of room to have a varied presentation. Doesn't have to be gambling, hand mucking. And if you can hold a break and do the Elmsley count, If you can't do the Elmsley count, what are you doing here? Why are you in this? Are you even? Let's get a little bit of credits on this. We printed this in 95 in Magic Magazine. You're going to find this. I had to go over here to the Conjuring Archive to look it up. The clean sweep penetration of thought. The Boys of Bennigan's. This is the only place I get a credit. Doug, Jason Alford. He was the young man in the picture with David Blaine earlier. And you can find this archive in Ask Alexander if you're like a Genie. If you're like a Genie subscriber, you can go through there and read the Genie articles. And you might even want to take a look at the 2023 issue where Jon republished this idea in his Exhumations column. So Jon would revive ideas that he thought had merit. Very happy to see that this had some light shined on it. And if you are a subscriber to Genie, you can go back through that rabbit hole and get the printed version of this. Look, it's real simple. Here's all you got to do. Produce your aces in an entertaining fashion. Assume we've done this. And then you want the aces separated, reds and blacks. They don't have to be in a particular order, but have them one above the other and in the same order. So blacks over reds, blacks over reds. It could be this, but paired up. The packets start together and you gesture in this fashion. And as you close the fan, get a little finger break above the bottom two cards. So maybe this, maybe as you close the fan, you in-jog a card. And then you can kind of square up and get a little break here. I just grab it on the fly. I just, as it closes, I grab the break. And then it's a casual cut. One simple cut. As you say, the backs are different color, but it's the faces that matter. Then you spread the top four off. And what this will do is give you this situation. So you have 2 red and 2 blue in each hand. But apparently, it's 4 different aces. So do that switch one more time, and then I'll walk you through the Elmsley count mechanics. And really all you're going to do is 2 Elmsley counts after that. So again, our colors are the same. We gesture, we get our break, cut the 2 cards to the top, flip the packet over, and then spread the top 4 off and focus on these. Now, as mentioned, they can name any card. So this I'll show you what it looks like if they'd said Ace of Hearts. So I said, hey, spectator, pick a color. Yeah, I think so too. It's a heck of a swapperoo, isn't it? So say, pick a color. Which one are we going to use? The one you choose is the one red? Sure. What would you like? Hearts or diamonds? And whichever one they name after they pick the color, put it third from the top, which is the Elmsley count position. Square the packet, turn it face down, and then you go to your packet and you say, okay, you chose the Ace of Hearts. I'm going to use the one that's opposite. In this case, so it's the same color, but opposite suit. And you put that in the Elmsley count position. Now, to make your magic happen, do an Elmsley count so they see nothingness. Oh, I'm sorry, not yet. Put your ace in the position, do your presentation, and then Elmsley count, out jog the 3rd card, strip it out and set it to the table. That's the one they named. In the right position. Pick this one up, and I like to show this one as I count it. So I count these, and I'll leave these a little askew maybe, showing them a little more blue. So I say, there's my Ace of Diamonds, and that's your Ace of Hearts. And now look, we're all set for a repeat. If we put this card back with this packet, you can Elmsley count here to show 4 cards. I put this one to the bottom, so it's in the right spot. You put this card back with the blue cards, Elmsley count. Everything's copacetic, put it to the bottom. 2 fingers, bang. And now it's like a hands-off version of the 2-card transposition. And that, for your viewing edification, is the clean sweep penetration of thought. In the words of Jon Racherbaumer, that trick's 30 years old. Buried in print. It's a good one, right? Use it in good health, GP. And yeah, you'll find flexibility in the counting procedure, for me to teach you, it's easiest just to say, do a couple of Elmsley counts, right? And then you can do that. I hope that trick inspires you like Think Ace inspired me many moons ago. And that's about all I have to say about that. Use the idea in good health. Hey, let's give away a couple of things, and good luck to everyone who cares to win the amazing cigar 777 or the Vanishing Oil and Water. If you haven't typed in rock, I'm going to give you about one more minute. I'm going to preview next week briefly. I have a list of things to go through, and the last thing I'm going to mention today is that next week, and as the kids would say, wow, we got a banger. Got a banger or a bopper. Lee Asher is going to be in the house on December 4th. Lee Asher, cardman extraordinaire, Vegas Mafia, president of the 52 Plus Joker convention. He's got gifts for us. He's got stories. Maybe he'll do some magic. We don't know. He don't get out much, at least not in the magic circles. He's all busy with the card collecting. Come by next week and say hello to Lee Asher. Pick up some freebies and learn a thing about playing cards. I'm excited to see Lee. I can't wait to see what he has to talk about. We've talked about a few things. He's blown my mind every time we've had a little bit of a conversation. There's your promo. Good luck, everyone. Draw. Drum roll. Taylor Gallion. Taylor. Congratulations. If you're not sure where to go from here, the next step you'll want to do is email me, conjure@conjure.com. Send me your mailing address. We'll get this thing worked out. Congratulations, Taylor, for the Jon Racherbaumer Remembrance giveaway. Well, we're nearing an hour. I could continue talking about Jon, but I think I've said just about everything that I have to say today. I hope I've given some idea of how wonderful this man was to pick up a young magic student and drive him to magic meetings and loan him your books and videotapes and mentor him in the ways of not just magic, but fatherhood. And Jon knew everything: bodybuilding, poetry, art, philosophy, psychology. He was a deep man. If you'd ever like to learn more about him, I encourage kindred spirits to join us, just like I used to do with Jon every Monday. I'm hanging out with dudes. Oh, we're waiting for the Magi chicks to show up. They're not there yet. But on the Conjure Discord, which is associated with learnsleight-of-hand.com, and also my YouTube members get the Discord link. This is where I carry on Jon's tradition of the Monday night gathering, the opportunity for young Magi to soiree with, guys who've been around a while. I'll see some of you tonight as we have a soiree with Bob Possible. Tonight is our Cut and Restored webinar, the Member Showcase. And Bob knows a lot about rope. He's going to teach us some tonight. I know one more guy who knows a little thing about rope, and I think we're going to end this stream by watching just one more trick from Racherbaumer. Once he's done, I'm going to click farewell. And if you need the scoop on the Bob Possible Cut and Restored Rope webinar, the address did get changed. Go to the Discord or go to the forum, and I'm going to see you guys there in about an hour. I got to get Jon's YouTube back up here briefly. I think of all the tricks that he had put on his YouTube channel, this was my favorite, and it's not that one. It's a weird one, but I can recall the night that he brought this to Bennigan's and performed it. It stymied me then. It'll probably stymie you now. And let's wrap this up. Jon Racherbaumer closing. And hey, rock. Rest in peace. And you're not going to be forgotten for a long time. Not as long as I'm around. Miss you, brother. Here's John doing card tricks with rope on cards. It's so weird.
Everybody knows the hoary professor's nightmare, which is usually done with ropes because you have an actual property. You have something that's pliable that can be manipulated in three-dimensional space. But the other day, someone asked me, could you do the professor's nightmare with cards? And the answer is yes. But if I do it with cards, I have to do it with cards in which there are representations, something more concrete, like a painting, which you cannot manipulate. And then, like in the professor's nightmare, you have a short rope, a medium length rope, and a long rope. And then you would take the ropes and stretch and manipulate them and eventually change them so that each rope is the same length. Impossible, you say? Perhaps. And then you could take it and move it so that ultimately you have a situation where you have one length of rope. And that's how you do professor's nightmare with cards.